But
Larry is going. Okay, Larry. It's Larry Owens, guys. From Omni.
So I ran Omni International
There you
Trading,
go.
which was an
Okay.
Amiga-only store from 1986 until, no, 85 till 1996. It started in my bedroom in Ballard, in the house we were renting, as a hobby. I had bought an Amiga and found that there was no software, there was no hardware, there was nothing locally. Nordstrom's at one point sold the Amiga,
Really?
and they had this, nobody knew anything about the machine, and I bought one, and I thought, what do I do? So I had a little side business that I was doing, and I thought, well, I could probably pick up some software and whatnot. Well, they all had minimums of at least 3. Some of them said you have to buy 10 to get the dealer pricing. So I kind of networked with other people and said, hey, who else wants a word processor? Or who wants this? Because I have to buy 3. And so it really was all kind of hobby-based. And yeah, I made a little money, but that wasn't my business. That was, I want software. I want hardware. Where do I get it? So that's how Omni International started. Well, it kept growing. Because I was only dealing with Amiga, I went around to the various Amiga user groups. I got the nickname the Digital Peddler because I'd fill up my car and I'd go in the back and they'd haul it all in, and so it was very popular both for them and for me. Moved out of the house to a location just north of the Ballard Bridge, kind of if you take the first exit going north. Not Ballard Bridge, Aurora Bridge, near, I think it was Woodlawn Avenue North. And if you buy stuff out there, it might have that address on it. We outgrew that and moved to 316 Westlake, which is now a group health building, but it was a 4,000 square foot building, and the bottom was all storage. And some of you may have seen, Stephen has it, but it's about an 1.5 inch stack of inventory that we had, and it's like lots and lots and lots of Amiga products, and Amiga only. We set up editing suites at both of the last 2 locations. We were video toaster dealers, Amiga dealers, and again, only Amiga. That's all we did. We put together or sponsored a group called the Amiga Artist Guild, and so every month computer artists, musicians would gather. I don't know if it was last year at this event or somebody bought my most favorite, which was from Mindlight 7, it was called, and it was a synthesizer that you'd feed music in, and then it would create light shows, and we had a projection TV type set, or a projection system, and it was really cool. As an old hippie era person, those days they were a little different, but anyway, it was a fun, really fun time. And then Commodore started having problems. And we had expanded from just having a retail store. I also had been exporting to Japan, because I'd lived in Japan at that time for 7 years previously. And so I knew people, and I became a major distributor of Amiga product, hardware and software. They didn't sell the Amiga in Japan. So I shipped Amiga, everything, anything and everything regarding Amigas, started shipping them in. It was great because it gave me a business reason to go to Japan where we could visit my wife's family. And those were the highlight days. We also expanded into putting together kiosk systems. Everything was based on the Amiga. So Denali National Park in Alaska, Alaska Airlines, TCI Cablevision. There were a whole bunch of different companies and public agencies that would buy these for interactive kiosks. So it interfaced with Laserdisc or hard drives or any kind of audio or whatever you had, and it was all touch panel. So that was a really cool thing. And the editing suites, as I said, we had both the video toaster setups of different kinds and also the Amy-Link editing control system. Well, what do you do when you can't get the computer? I scrounged. I started buying computers from all over the world, sight unseen. I said, oh yeah, we have 20 of them in the Philippines. And okay, that's where they made a bunch of stuff. Okay, send them to me. And it was rough. And I had to start laying people off. That was very difficult. And at that point, it was like, now what? So we closed down our store and moved to a much smaller, almost like an office on Westlake, closer to the Chinese restaurant, but on the water. And it was literally one of the low-slung buildings with little office suites. And retail was pretty much over. I still had inventory, so people would call or come by, but it's like, where's your store? Yeah, where's my store? Yeah. So, dealing in Japan was very interesting. I wanted to share a couple of experiences with that. So in 1978, I bought my first pet. I bought it in December of 77. It arrived in January or February of 78. No software, no extra hardware. When you powered it on, you got an A prompt. Wow, I have a personal computer. A prompt. I didn't know BASIC at that. Well, actually, I knew a little bit, but that was all there was. Yeah. So a lot of the software that's out there you'll see is educational software for the pet because I was teaching. I took my pet teacher's pet, of course, into school, and after about the third day, some parent had apparently gone screaming to the principal about how dare them bring computers into the classroom, it's going to dumb down everyone, and so they told me I had to take it home and I had to go before the school board to explain to them why I should be allowed to have a computer in the classroom. Wow. Never shy for going up against whatever they said you can't do. I gave a presentation before the meeting. I had some interactive stuff for people coming in to touch and try it. Big smiles on their faces. I then explained that, hey, it's great for not only teaching rote memory things, but I showed them the vocabulary sheets that I made where, find the word and you circle them one way or the other. So every week when they had their vocabulary words, I made puzzles out of them and hand them out. So I handed those out to the board members and said, see if you can find the words. My first graders can you? Needless to say, they gave permission for that. Later that year, I accepted a job teaching for the Department of Defense dependent schools, which is basically military brats overseas. So packed everything up, moved to Japan, which is where I got assigned. That's a whole other story of how that happened. But ended up in Japan with a US version, 120 volt, 60 cycle Commodore PET. Tokyo has 100 volts, 50 cycles. I wrote a letter to Commodore in the US. They wrote back and said, our service center in Japan is in Osaka. That's across the country. But I also saw that they had an office listed in Tokyo. And I was in Yokohama, 24 miles approximately, 30 kilometers distant. I had a car. I picked up my Commodore PET computer, walked into this office building. This isn't a service. And then plopped it down on the counter, and the receptionist's eyes got huge, and one moment, and she scurried off into the back. I'm like, uh-oh, this is going to be interesting. I don't speak Japanese. She doesn't speak English. What do I do? And I waited, and bounding up from the back was this guy. Hi, I'm Tony. How can I help you? Japanese guy, but speaking fluent English. Tony Tokai was his name. He was the president of Commodore Japan. At another time in his career, he was also the president of Atari Japan. Like the Tramiels, they kind of did both. And he basically said, hey, how can I help you? And I said, well, you know, got this computer, it's US based. And he goes, oh, well, let's see. And he called some people out and they walked off with my computer. And I'm talking with them. I'm like, well, I really just came to find out I'm on a school teacher's salary. I mean, Japan at that point was the most expensive city. Tokyo was the most expensive city in the world. If you took a $1,000 bill, which they don't make anymore, and placed it on the ground in Ginza, it would not pay for the space it covered.
Oh, wow.
That's how expensive it was. So as it took longer and longer, I'm freaking out in the lobby, and this guy's real nice. I mean, easy to talk to, friendly. He seemed to really enjoy speaking English with me, you know, that he probably didn't have a lot of opportunity. And he said, oh, they're ready, and took me back, and he said, okay, well, we replaced this, and we replaced the ROM chips, and we replaced this, and we did, and I'm going, ka-ching, 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 in my brain. And I said, how much do I owe you? And he said, we're corporate headquarters. We have no way to take money. Yes! So that was the start of a very nice relationship. So he helped me with that. He wanted pictures and whatnot of using it in my classroom that he could then feed back through his channels. And then parents started asking about it because the Commodore 64 came out during this time period. And the Japanese version, of course, had a Japanese keyboard and Japanese ROM chips, and the manuals were all in Japanese. And Tony said, oh, we can swap them out for you. And so I had to get permission from the US side, because I was a government employee, to moonlight and have a second job. And then because I was in Japan and I lived off base, I had to get permission from the Japanese government that I could run a side business. Well, it wasn't really a business. I had a full-time job. I wanted to get Commodore products out there. I wanted my students to have access to them. So I might have made 20 bucks per computer, but the basic, hey, cover my gas money to get into Tokyo, give me a little bit of something, and so started selling them. He helped me work with the schools, the district for the students in Japan, to get them into multiple schools for some computer labs, all at steep discount prices. For the school ones, I didn't make a dime or a yen. I just wanted them out there. So he was very happy that he was getting his products out to the American community there. And the end kind of nice note for the whole process was, after I'd been selling, I sold about 100 of them, I would say, the Navy exchange system picked it up for their base exchange, and they were selling them on base. And they were getting them from the factory with US keyboards, with US manuals, with everything. So it worked out really nicely. So that relationship that started with me walking in, sheepishly saying, now what, ended up to be a really nice thing. And one of the follow-ups after I moved back to the States was I still kept contact with him and some of the technicians, and several of them, a guy named Terutokuda, Tokuda-san and Teramoto, who were engineers in Tokyo, Japan. They stayed with me in Seattle when they were coming over for Consumer Electronics Show or other reasons. They'd route through Seattle, they'd stay at my house. So it turned out to be just really a wonderful relationship. A lot of people still have those computers. I've stayed in contact with many of the students that I had now on Facebook and whatnot. And they say, Mr. Owens. I go, hey, I'm Larry. They're 50 years old. I'm not Mr. Owens anymore. Just call me Larry. And I can't do it. It's so hard. But some of them still have those computers. And preparing for this, where I was going through cassettes, I came across a number of them that had students' names on them. And I'd forgotten that what I had done when I was teaching them BASIC and how to make little programs is I went out and bought 30 cassettes, and each student had their own cassette that they could write their own programs on, and they would turn them in to me for me to grade them and evaluate or whatever. And I still have some of those projects that they did. I mean, I'm almost tearing up now. It's just so emotional to see those things. So that's kind of where my background is with the Commodore product. The dealers that in Japan, many of them went out of business when Commodore did. My big thing was when we went to the small shop, we picked up the Pinnacle Systems Aladdin, which was a kind of like a video toaster, but a notch up both in quality and price. It had a really good clean signal. You didn't need all kinds of extra things, and it was PC driven, so a much bigger market. They also made switchers, digital effect generators, character generators. They bought Chiron, if you know that name. They bought Grass Valley Group. So if you've ever heard of Grass Valley switchers, this is all broadcast equipment. They bought the video server division of Hitachi, became a Pinnacle company. And since I was representing them, selling them in Seattle or in the U.S., had to have something to replace the toaster and the Amigas. I worked on them for 18 months to this vice president saying, you know, you've got a distributor in Japan, but I got their catalog last time I went over there, and it was a big, 1.5 inch thick catalog of the what's the size, A6, is that the?
A4.
A4, thank you. And the amount of space that they gave to Pinnacle Systems was about, that big for our entire product line. So it took me 18 months, and then one day I got a call from this vice president saying, Larry, yeah, I'm a little suspicious. He goes, I had this idea. Would you consider helping us open up an office in Japan? Hey, brilliant idea, man. How did you come up with that? 18 months of this kind of stuff. And that really bailed me out. My staff had already been decimated because of not having computers. So when I shut down Omni International Trading, it was very sudden between shutting that down and going overseas again, going back to Japan in 1996 for Pinnacle Systems. So quick that we really didn't even have time for a going out of business sale, which is why all of this stuff, and last year I was here as well, as many of you know, with as much as this year, that all went in my basement at home.
You have a little more this year.
This year I brought more. I have a second table this year. And it fit in the car. So, the last 2 employees spun off, and they were still doing some interactive video kiosk type things and transitioning over to PCs to do that work. So they weren't left in the lurch, but if you've ever run a business that had to lay people off, no fun. No fun at all. So I went over, yes?
At the height of your business, how many employees did you have, Larry?
22, I think.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
So we had 3 video editing suites of different size, format. And so I had specialists who had come from the industry, and we kind of worked out a great deal where some of them were freelancers and they didn't have their own system, so we did some bartering of, hey, you want to do your productions on our equipment? Great. Would you teach classes? Or will you work part-time? And so I had a number of people who, they didn't know squat about anything else in the store, but they knew video editing, they did production work. So, and with that 22, those weren't all full-time because we had people who could only work on weekends, or we had people who only worked, certain days. So, but at the max it was about 22 people. I'm still friends with a number of them, and I run across former customers who we look at each other and I think like, yeah, you look familiar. And well, what's your name again? And they'll say the name and I'll say, I'm Larry. And they go, Omni International. Yeah. So that's always fun. One of the programs out there is a Amiga satellite tracking program that a man named Neil Hill made. And so I first knew Neil through Amiga computers. And then when he came out with that, it had his ham radio call sign on it. I said, oh, I'm a ham radio operator, general class. And so we had that connection. Omni goes away, I go off to Japan, I come back from Japan, I buy a 1974 BMW 2002 TII. Okay. So not a 2002 model year, but the model 2002. Classic car.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Fuel injected. They only sold 7,500 of them in the US. And I go to an event on February 2nd, 2002. 020202. 120 2002 showed up for this event. We met in Alki. We did a whole parade and ended up in the Golden Gardens. Who should I meet? Neil Hill in his BMW 2002 Tii. I was like, God, get away from me, you know, or let's go have a beer, or whatever it is. But you know, all of these connections. And even today, some of the people who were here earlier, some who's here now maybe, I learned that they spoke Japanese and had traveled to Japan. And so we could share Japanese stories of traveling and computers. So this community, I love this community. You guys are awesome, and you know, you extend out all over the place. So those are kind of cool things. Yeah.
Larry, on the video toaster systems that you sold,
Yes.
do you remember what their price ranges were? Because I remember in magazines, like in video magazines, they would go, here's the basic system, or here's the middle line system where you get more stuff, and here's the top of the line system.
So kind of around $10,000 for a complete system,
Wow.
but it could be more. Again, it really depended on what all you wanted, and the Amilink, or Amilink, however you want to pronounce it, was the control system that would roll the decks, pre-roll them, get everything so you could do your edits, computer assisted, you could add titling, you could do all of these other things. And that was thousands more, and for each device you had to have the right interface for it to all hook up together.
Wow.
So it could add up very quickly. I mean, we sold some to Boeing, and I think like $25,000 systems, and to Microsoft, and yeah, to a bunch of different. I mean, Hewlett, HP bought some from us. I still have some of the invoices or receipts from those. And go, wow, we sold to Weyerhaeuser. Oh, I'd forgotten that. Oh, we sold to we sold to Nordstrom. Oh, we sold to, you know, all of these different people. And with Omni International Trading, we got orders from all over the world, from Palau, from India, from Europe, from Asia.
Wow.
One of my customers was a man named Jim Gunn, and he sent his card with when he sent his payment, and he was the police chief of Hong Kong.
Okay.
And that was pretty cool. Go back and visit Commodore Japan, and then also I went to Commodore Hong Kong where they actually produced it. And so when I went there, I showed up unannounced at the police station, the Central Police Station, and asked for him, and they said, well, who are you, and whatever, and say, just tell him it's from Omni International Trading. And he came out, you know, a big, huge grin. And, what are you doing here? So I'm just customer service here to make sure everything's okay. So again, you know, worldwide, it's so cool.
So, with your pet, was it was a 2001?
Yeah, the original one, 2001.
Check out this.
That's it. No, the original ones had the blue bezel.
Zoom in on the keyboard.
Japanese keyboard.
Ooh,
Yeah,
interesting.
Even the cash register keyboard, they did Japanese kind of on
The
on
Japanese
that
was pretty much, the PET was pretty much developed in Japan.
I think they was wrong.
Maybe, but I doubt it.
Yeah.
But the sourcing, the main purpose of Commodore Japan was part sourcing, whether those parts were going off to the US or to the Philippines or to Taiwan or to be used in Japan or anywhere in the world. The main purpose was sourcing of materials. And one of the big fights was there was a difference in thought process between Japanese, you get the best quality you possibly can, and a stock market listed company that says profits, lower cost, cheap, cheap, cheap. And those of you who followed the Commodore line, the quality of parts went down because they were driven by, you got to cut costs. And, the Japanese don't think that way. It's like, hey, we're going to produce the product that works. Kind of a follow-up on that, when I was with Pinnacle Systems and set up their subsidiary in Japan. Pinnacle Systems was also a S&P 500 company and driven by quarterly profits. And as you know, products in the US are sold that should be labeled alpha or beta, and they put them on the shelf and say, here it is, and oh, we have an update, and you know, but they'll sell incomplete products because they need to move them out, get those profits, and then they'll worry about updating them later. That mindset is absolutely unacceptable in Japan. Absolutely unacceptable. You do not put something on the shelf unless you're willing to stand behind it. Cool. So for me, having lived in Japan, married to a Japanese, knowing how they do business, I set up another import business when I was in Japan. That's another story. But I knew what they expected and what was not accepted. And so I reported that to headquarters, and they'd send stuff that was crap. It wasn't ready. And they said, you got to move X number, you know, this amount of volume to meet your quotas. And I basically said, I'm not going to sell them. Fire me. I will not jeopardize my channel, my dealers, the end users by selling them something that's not a complete product. Fortunately, they had already bought Miro, which is a German company that made video capture boards and some other things. They later bought Targa, if you've heard of Targa boards. So the Germans I was in contact with for localizing for the Japanese market. And so they stood behind me. They backed me up and said, Larry's right. And they said, oh, his numbers, he's not making his numbers. And they said, yeah, he will. You know, you can't sell crap. But it became a major stress point between me and my staff. I had 12 staff in Japan, all Japanese. I was the only foreigner. And U.S. business thinking. You know, are you quarter by quarter thinking every 90 days? That's what's important, or are you thinking long term? So those are kind of, you know, they all kind of tie together with the experience of bringing them Japanese company products into the schools and to people there. Very interesting stuff. Yes?
Did you sell your products to Hollywood production companies?
We did, and one of the people who worked on, oh gosh, what was it? Battleship Galactica, is that the one?
Battlestar Galactica?
Battlestar Galactica used Amigas.
Babylon 5.
And one of their, one of the people who worked on that became one of my employees when he moved up here. He actually, you know, I flew down to LA to interview him and brought him on staff. So some of the stuff, but they basically bought locally.
Oh, okay.
So it was Babylon 5.
Was it Babylon 5?
5?
Oh, okay,
That's
yeah,
it.
Babylon 5.
Yeah, Babylon 5, thank you. But we did have, during the heyday of the video toaster, we had an event with Kiki Stockhammer, Kiki effects, if you know what those are,
Yes.
like you're doing a cartwheel and whatever. And Will Wheaton was an Amiga user as well, and so he came, and the line on Westlake went all the way down the street and around the corner to get in.
Wow.
Somebody here was there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got one who was there
Oh, wow.
for that event.
Near China Harbor, right? right?
Yeah, no, this was the one that
The
was,
old one.
yeah, where now there's a group health building,
I
the
see.
300 block. So, you know, it was fun, and people would come from all over to see the Amigas, to play with the stuff. A lot of the reason why there are loose discs out there is one of our policies was that customers could try the software before they bought it.
Oh.
Great customer service, not great business practice, but long run it's kind of business practice. It is good.
It is.
Overall it was good, but I ended up with a lot of discs separated from manuals. A lot of them are stamped, you know, dealer demo only, and scrounging trying to find the matching boxes or manuals or instructions or anything. But that's why there's so many of these, you know, how do you have the disc but you don't have anything else? That's why. Any questions from anyone else other than Robert?
I have another
I mean,
question.
yeah.
I just real quick, I might have missed this, but after Commodore, NewTek obviously had to like pivot and go over to the the PC hardware side. Did Omni try to do that as well?
Sort of, but what we did is that's when we picked up the Pinnacle Systems Aladdin, is that the NewTek PC one never really, I'm not even sure if they ever released it, but the Aladdin system was a step up, and we thought since we're really, that was more about, we were getting away from retail, because again, I started Omni International as, hey, this is my hobby, I want more stuff. And I never raised the prices that a smart businessman would do. Every year was, you know, are we going to make, you know, we're going to make payroll, or we're going to make rent, or we're going to, you know, it was dicey some of those years. Other years were great, and we go, yeah, you know, we're over the hump, yeah. But my philosophy was really about getting these products into the hands of people. And so we were a little more than mail order, which was starting to get more and more popular. But again, customers could come in, they could try the product, and people were willing to pay the uplift. It wasn't much, but over mail order for that privilege. Did we get the freeloaders who came in and tried them out and then walked out and bought mailer? Yeah, of course we did. That's part of life. You know, did we like that? Not really, but who hasn't done that? You know, you go to one car dealer and you look at it and there you think, yeah, okay, but I'm going to go shop around. So, yeah. So we didn't pivot to the to the PC version of NewTek, but that was, you know, kind of a conscientious decision, and it worked out well because that's the company that hired me to open up their office in Japan. I spent 4 years there with my wife and daughter.
As a dealer, were you sent a lot of test programs to try out, and then the companies would just say, give us your opinion on you know, this software or hardware?
Yes. So dealers can always get demos at either a lower price or sometimes free. And so we tested a lot of things. And so some of the things that were in our catalog, we never actually stocked because they weren't that good. There were some really horrible games that were just like,
what?
You know,
Wow.
so we had them in the catalog. If somebody wanted them, they could, oh, you have this. You know, look at this. So, yeah, it worked out pretty well that way.
The paper catalog you were showing me earlier.
Yeah, the paper catalog I was showing
there
you
you
earlier.
go.
And so we got demo units. Then also I was asked to be, this should interest you, for one fleeting year, Commodore put together a Commodore Dealer Advisory Board. And they had 7 or 9 dealers from across the country, and we were one of them. And they flew us to Westchester, Pennsylvania, and put us up. And they had a whole series over, I think, 3 days of trainings, and it was a disaster for the dealers. I'll give you some examples.
Okay.
How many of you are aware of Apple's educational program that they have?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ongoing, never-ending, if you wanted one. Commodore's educational programs lasted for 3 months, 90 days. How many school districts can get approval, purchase orders, and ordering of outside products in 90 days? Anybody know?
Wow.
Yeah, the answer is
No.
they can't.
Yeah.
Wow.
So every single dealer in that, and it was big box store type places, CompU store or whatever.
CompUSA.
That might have been them. And we're a mom and pop, and you know, various all across the country. We all in unison said, if you are serious about getting in the educational market, you need to have consistency. You need to have a program that lasts more than a year, because oftentimes the budget for this year is already spent or accounted for. So if they want to order them, they need to be able to see them, get the paperwork in order, and put it into next year's budget request. They didn't budge.
Wow.
And most of the time, they said, here's what we're going to do, here's what we're doing, and what do you guys think? They didn't want to know what we thought.
Oh.
They were telling us, here's what we're going to do. And customers or dealers had concerns about the decreasing quality of the parts that were being used on the boards, on the motherboards, and in the systems. So, yeah, okay, I was on the dealer advisory committee. Woohoo! It did nothing. Absolutely
Wow.
didn't do, they didn't listen to us, and they didn't answer any of our needs. So when you talk about the decline and what happened to Commodore, there were all of these different little, you know, storms brewing in all different areas, and that was one that I personally you know, suffered through. The people that we met were great, and then when you talk to them individually, caring, concerned, interested, but when it was the corporate, here is what we're going to do, here's how it works.
Was that around 1990 or so? Or?
Probably around that time. I'd have to look, but yeah, I'm guessing around there. I still have the packet for, you know, congratulations, here's the agenda. And I looked at that, and I looked at it, I kind of like, it got me mad all over again. 20, 30, whatever it is, years later, it still evoked emotions from it. Yeah. Other questions? It can be off the wall, it can be anything.
So it's said that Jack Tramiel said something like, the Japanese are coming, we must become the Japanese. And then to go against, you know, their culture, you know, kind of cheap out on all the parts and everything. That's just kind of
There was a
weird.
lot of internal strife. I was not a part of Commodore, so
Yeah.
as an outsider, but had a number of touch points within Commodore, there was a lot of internal disagreement and strife, especially over the parts. Tony Tokai, that was his job,
Yeah.
and he was not about. I think one of the reasons he went to Atari, you have to ask him. I don't know if he's still alive, but he was really frustrated about corporate telling him that what he was sourcing was too expensive. Because again, it was like, do you want this to last? Do you want this
Yeah.
to be, you know, a product that people really want and will keep? Or do you want something, and at that point it was, I want something I can get off the shelves as fast as possible.
Yeah.
And when you look at their sales going down, it's quite understandable. What are we going to do? We got to cut costs.
Right.
So, you know, is there a right answer or a wrong answer? No, there's perspectives, right? Got to take into consideration what their needs were. But as a dealer and as an end user, it was painful.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're all kind of sad about the decline of Commodore. I mean, yeah.
One more story about Commodore Japan and Tony Tokai. So after he helped me get computers into my school, the head of the PTA, who happened to be a mother of one of my students, and a second person from the PTA and I went back into Tokyo with some kind of gift or whatever, a thank you, and basically to meet face to face where the PTA could say, because they raised money for whatever the cost was. The school didn't have money for it, but the PTA raised money. So we went to thank him, and we're in his office, a corner office, and the windows here behind him here and over on this side, and we were sitting like where you are. So he was focused on us, greeted us warmly, it was really friendly, and all of a sudden, oh, fuck. Now, this is the head of the PTA, right? Elementary school, PTA, 2 people from the PTA, and I was, this is Japan. They're the most polite people in the world. What is going on? I mean, we were just shocked. And he said, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. I have a convertible, and I left the top down, and it was pouring rain. Well, it wasn't just a convertible. It was a Morgan, and if you know the Morgan, they're handmade. They're very expensive. I don't, maybe they make 20 a year or 50. I don't know what the number is. Look it up. Morgan sports car, very expensive, and importing cars into Japan at that point was very expensive. So his precious Morgan was out in the rain. So he disappeared. We're sitting there stunned because he hops up and runs out of the room after uttering those words. And we're like, whoa. And he came back and he was red in the face. He was so embarrassed and apologized and said, hey, we would have done the same thing. And the head of the PTA said, I'm a Navy wife. I've heard far worse. So it worked out pretty well. But that was the kind of person he was, that he, was really easy to get along with and talk to. And those memories will last forever. One of the magazines I didn't bring is they published a Vic magazine in Japan, in Japanese. And for the grand introduction of the Vic 1001, which is the Japanese version, the Vic 20 was the US version, Tony invited me to bring some students to the grand opening, and we just thought, okay, we're going to wander around. No, he plopped those kids in front of Vic 1001s and had somebody standing by, because there was all in Japanese for the Japanese rollout, and then on the cover of this Vic magazine are my 2 students and me in this grand opening. So he got some more mileage out of that connection. We got some more mileage out of it. And what's interesting is the one student, one of the 2 students, were friends on Facebook. And she'd be in her 50s, and but we're still friends that way. And one of the people who said, "You're Mr. Owens. I can't call you Larry." So, and I met up with her and her husband, who was head of NCIS in Asia, and their daughters in Japan a number of years ago, but long after she had 2 kids. So again, this community is really just awesome. Love you guys.
Thank you, Larry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My